It's my feel-good breakfast show.
As your natural journey unfolds, let our products naturally assist you. SALOME, your journey matters. Available at pharmacies nationwide.
When it comes to our health, menstruation is a natural fact of life. Embracing your journey, however, is a bit more difficult, especially when you don't have all the information you need. That is why it is so important to educate our children about the menstrual cycle and try to answer all these questions they have. When we no longer have these answers, the experts are here to guide us through them. Now, joining us via Zoom today to discuss your teenager and their menstrual cycle is General Practitioner Dr. Marlon Mckay. Good morning, Doctor.
Morning, Zoe. Thank you for having me.
I know there are a lot of parents here that sometimes dread having these conversations and some that probably should have had these conversations. But for the parents, what do they need to tell their young children about menstruation?
I think parents should be a source of good, clinical, accurate information for their kids. And really the big question is, when do you start? And really we want to start as early as possible to give this type of information. It shouldn't ideally be a formal sit-down session because you don't want to overload them with information. So it should be a process that starts as soon as you feel that your child is ready. And these can be driven by clues. You know, you may see an advert on TV that talks about a product. You may see someone who's maybe flat out because they are currently with their cycle now. So one can use any opportunity to initiate that conversation and slowly build up that source of information. Prepare them, tell them what menstruation is. Tell them how long it usually takes, what effect it can have on the body, and really what it means for a child to start menstruation. In other words, this is your body preparing you to one day to be able to have children. So good clinical, correct information from a trusted source is always important.
Dr. Marlon, I agree 100% with you. Make it as natural and conversational with your kids throughout. You know, it needs to be like an everyday conversation almost. And I feel like this needs to be for both boys and girls. Now, Doctor, in your years of experience, who would you advise a child to speak to if they have questions about menstruation?
Yeah, so I think it should be the one person with whom the child feels comfortable with to talk to, but also where there's an element of trust. In other words, trust in the source of information, trust in the integrity of the information. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a parent. It doesn't necessarily always have to be the mom. It can even be a trusted aunt. Maybe there's an aunt who is a nurse in the family who has that information. In my case, to be personal, maybe it's because I'm a doctor, but I have a close relationship with my daughter. So we tend to chat about that quite often because I see when she's ill, I crush her tablets for her pain tablets because she still can't swallow tablets. So anyone who is in that zone in terms of connection with your child where there's an element of trust.
Now, we always want kids to be comfortable when sharing how they feel or even when asking such important questions. What role do you think fathers and brothers play in understanding what menstruators experience so that they can offer support?
Oh, absolutely. This is such a vital thing. I think dads especially should stop this attitude of burying their heads in the sand. They should know about it. They should be able to talk comfortably about menstruation. Boys especially with regard to offering support. You know, we talk about premenstrual syndrome and the emotional changes that go through. So boys need to understand when my sister or my cousin is feeling down or edgy or irritable, easily annoyed, it could be the menstrual cycle. So they need to know about how to support emotionally, physically when they're down. And I think what's important here, Zoe, also is that we need to talk in plain, simple language, but also use the correct terms. We shouldn't use derogatory terms for the anatomical parts of the body, especially the woman's body. We should call it by its name so that they can talk comfortably and have this conversation. So nothing is secret, nothing is hidden. There's no stigma attached to it. And everyone in the home has a full understanding of what the child is going through during their cycle.
And it's a beautiful thing to go through. I also know that we need to understand that there are different things that affect the menstrual cycle. Now, Doctor, can you tell us how do eating disorders affect your menstrual cycles and what are the long-term effects for someone that is perhaps struggling with an eating disorder now and their menstrual cycle?
Oh, absolutely. This is such a good point. So whenever someone comes in with a mom or alone and says, doctor, I used to have my period, it was fine, and now suddenly I'm not seeing my period, or it's now become irregular. One of the first things we want to address is eating habits, and eating habits that impact weight. So when someone is not eating as they used to, and there's drastic or significant weight loss, it can lead to something that we call secondary amenorrhea. In other words, I used to have my period has now stopped, I'm not having my period. And one of the commonest presentations here is something like anorexia, or where someone has been going through some emotional thing and they're no longer eating. And so we need to reassure and sit down with the child that's having this problem, because it can impact the cycle, it can impact future fertility, obviously it can impact mood and mental health. So this is very, very critical. Someone who has had a period and stops menstruating is a marker for something more serious going on.
My next question is geared towards you, because this is something it took me quite a few years to become comfortable with, because we know that menstruation is a natural fact of life. And how do you encourage your patients to embrace their menstrual cycles and not feel ashamed or embarrassed by it?
Oh, excellent. So what we are saying is, it is part of growing up. It is part of the natural development of you turning from a young girl into a woman. It is preparation for one day for childbearing. So it's normal. There should be no stigma attached to it. There should be no embarrassment around bleeding. There should be no secrets around it. It should be an open thing. It should be discussed openly. And it's a beautiful thing. And yes, it can be, for want of a better term, sometimes a nuisance, can come at the wrong time. The periods can be heavy. They can be painful. It may need you to see a doctor or to spend a day or two in bed. But that's all part of it. And it's preparation. It's a beautiful part of the development of the human body. So embrace it, encourage it. And if you are experiencing dysmenorrhea, painful periods, there are amazing amount of things that one can do, amazing amount of products that can help you. So you never have to be alone. And I also tell them, it's okay not to be okay, because we can make sure that you will be okay by helping you through this.
I feel like that is our tagline. It's okay to not be okay. Dr. Marlon Mckay, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me. Bye-bye.
And just like that, we've learned something new for the day, and you've got some much needed info to share with your friends and family, because with SALOME, your journey matters.
On a monthly basis, all of us powerful, fierce women deal with our menstrual cycle. But why let it affect our lives?
Anywhere I go, anywhere I be.
As your natural journey unfolds, let our products naturally assist you. Live your full unfiltered life with the SALOME range for PMS, menstrual pain, and heavy menstrual bleeding. SALOME, your journey matters. Available at pharmacies nationwide.